me, transformation is more cultural than architectural and technical because it impacts people.
Absolutely love it. Welcome back to the Enterprise Content Show. I'm Will, and I'm still fascinated by how enterprise content quietly powers some of the biggest transformations in the world. And who are you?
I'm Franzi, here to connect the dots between content, process, AI, and real enterprise impact.
Love it. And Franzi is always about the real impact. I can be fluffy and get excited about stories, but Franzi
I'm the
wants
voice of reason, like always.
The voice of reason. She wants to know dollar bills, signatures on paperwork, making good things happen.
You can start the paperwork.
So today we're going global. We're really excited about our guest today, and because we're talking about transformation at scale. So we've got a really authoritative voice with us today to talk about what it takes to build strategic alliances, what digital transformation looks like in the real world, and all of that at enterprise scale. So we have with us today Rajesh Damodaran from Wipro, one of the world's leading global systems integrators, and a proud strategic partner from our perspective at Doxis. Franzi, we welcome you.
There he is. Welcome on stage.
Really good to have you with us, Rajesh.
Good to have you here.
Hello there. Very glad to meet you as well. Very excited to be here for this discussion.
Really cool. Thanks, Rajesh. Well, let's kick off maybe with a few warm-up questions, and perhaps first of all, just give us a quick intro, Rajesh. Tell us about your portfolio, your background, just to set the scene before we dive in.
Yeah, let's get started. I am the global head of digital experience practice at Wipro. I'm responsible for technology services across the CX and service operations value chain. What we mean by that is across the industries, the offerings dwell across digital marketing, commerce, interactive user experience, and intelligent process automation. I'm in Wipro for 20 years, and I'm based out of London.
Love that. 20 years, and you must have seen so much change, both in technology innovation, but also in scale. So we're really excited to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Franzi, I think you've got the next warm-up question, Franzi.
I do. Rajesh, you have lived and worked in many different countries, like in the US, the UAE, in India, in the UK. How has that global exposure shaped your leadership style?
That's an interesting question to start with. I would say keep it human-centric. Working across all of these geographies, across UK, US, UAE, and India, taught me one thing, which is context matters. And it's all about, there is strategy, propositions, these are all defined globally, but the execution is always local. Just because it has worked in one place does not mean that it will work in other places, in other contexts. So you need to listen more, adapt very quickly. To me, transformation is more cultural than architectural and technical because it impacts people. Hence,
absolutely love it.
Empathy is core to my style of working. I remain less rigid and more adaptive.
Super cool. Thank you. And what about from human empathy, style, and context to technology? What would be one word for the future of enterprise content management? Just one word.
Intelligence.
Intelligence. That's a good word. We'll take it. Thank you. We'll come back to that. Franzi?
Maybe that aligns with my next question. One capability every modern content platform must have.
I would say, okay, intelligence was a capability. I'm sorry, this probably will be a little a cut in this. I would say it's about adaptability.
Nice, really cool. Thank you. And then I've got the favorite question that I wanted to ask for the warm up, and then we'll move on. Is who would be your choice, Mahendra Singh Dhoni or Virat Kohli?
That's a tough one. Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that was enough from cricket legends. We now move to content strategy. Let's talk about how ECM is really evolving. Rajesh, you had like a front row seat and broad experience in how the ECM market has evolved, or maybe even going beyond the ECM market, more in the direction of digital transformation. What have you seen, or what do you think has changed most over the past, let's say, 5 years?
So if I step back, ECM has evolved from being a pure storage to becoming an enterprise-wide decision enabler. Till 5 years ago, most ECM conversations that we have seen in the space has been all about storage. It has been about compliance. It has been about retrievals, and a lot of outcomes in terms of cost. Post that, it's all been about the flow, which is what I mean by is content is no longer static. It triggers actions. It moves through workflows. It shapes decisions. So it's almost power every workflow, be it the customer journeys, be it onboarding, be it marketing, or any regulatory decisions that essentially as part of the workflows. Now, and this is considerably changed from what used to be the traditional way of looking at is storage and a way of retrieving that information at some point of time as against being weaved into the workflows by itself. So if I take an example of a bank, ECM was originally positioned as a compliance archive in many ways. We've seen this, but once we integrate that to onboarding workflows, CRMs, it becomes real-time decision engine. It becomes a huge accelerator for client onboarding, significantly putting the capabilities in the front that can drive a lot more agentic workflows, a lot more automated decisioning. That's the shift. And the shift is all about ECM moving from a traditional managing the documents today to enabling decisioning.
Super, super cool. I love this sort of cut through that you've achieved there of from static to flow. Like flow is much more alive, and I love how you're talking about like that enabling decisioning is
That's right.
super,
Yeah,
super
absolutely.
interesting. Nice. And having led large scale transformation programs and guided and advised in that area, what's one kind of hard lesson that still shapes how you would advise teams approaching, for example, a large scale ECM project? Like, what's some top level transformation tips?
I love that question. And I tell this all the time to my clients that this is a hard learning, but I've seen that technology transformations without a process transformation fail. And I'll expand that a little bit. I'll take an example. We were the government client migrating millions of documents, very important documents, uh, very proprietary documents that are citizen information, highly secure information. We did a very successful, flawless migration onto a modern ECM, but the adoptions lagged big time. The real value of that whole investment in the ECM platforms really did not benefit because people were continuing with their mails, local drives, informal processes. Why? It's just because workflows weren't designed deeply enough. Content was never really available when and where it was needed through the entire workflow. Now, we start with every ECM program with how will work feel different on Monday morning? If that's not clear, the platform won't work.
Very insightful. Thank you, Rajesh. So I think that gives us a good kind of direction of what differentiates a successful project from one that fails. And he also said in the beginning that your leadership approach is very human-centric. So in the end, it's not the technology and not the services, it's humans working with humans in the project. So from a collaboration or project initiation phase, Is there something like a tip, some insights you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. The key things that I would definitely advise based on our experience in the initiation phase is we can go and collect a lot of information about the project and the kind of features and the details of various other things that essentially need to go into the program. The most important thing, according to me, is essentially to make sure that we understand each of the personas that are going to use the systems across the entire workflow and bring each of those valuable insights of how things will change for them as part of your entire backlog. Get them into your planning cycle, get them involved, let them be part of the entire phase of the program. They need not be just brought towards the testing phase when they are they are realizing a lot of things, the way they work, the way they use it on a day-to-day basis are so different and probably will not work, right? You don't want to have those surprises. So you left shift as much possible, get them engaged in the initial phases. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you. And moving maybe from there, which is super helpful foundation around people and projects, let's talk a bit about AI, Rajesh. You know, everyone's talking about AI quite rightly, and we're curious to understand from your perspective, you know, where does AI play a role in the ECM space? What sort of disruption are you starting to see or expecting? Be great to understand a little bit about your vision for what's next in AI plus ECM.
Absolutely. Very interesting question, and a question very pertinent in today's world. Answers, nobody has a full answer. We still keep learning every day. But let me give a point of view that I foresee given my experiences with the content management platforms. Now, AI has been in use in ECM, if you've seen lately, or not lately, I would say for a while now, helping in extraction, tagging, even into an extent summarizing, which is very good. But the real disruption, in my view, is going to happen when AI is fundamentally going to shift ECM from more reactive based retrievals to a more proactive intelligence. What I mean by that is instead of searching for documents, systems will anticipate needs. We are moving towards a more of an agentic world. AI will read contracts, will flag risk, suggest actions, draft responses, and trigger certain workloads in your processes downstream. So that's not incremental improvement. That's an operational compression that's going to happen. And to me, ECM will become, and it will be a real to reduce a lot of risk within the organization, as well as a lot more opportunities for everything within the enterprise, because the contents do have a ton of informations. So it will just not be, again, going back to the example of contracts, it won't just be storing contracts, but it will, for example, interpret the exposures that are there. It won't just archive policy documents, it will surface the, and hence the enterprise that connects AI with a content systems.
And is this something that you're already seeing as a real business impact, or is it still in POC testing pilot phase? Like, where would you see the biggest real business present impact of AI in the space?
I think the biggest enabler for this is, of course, the amount of trust and safety of AI as we go forward. So that's evolving space. We all know that. So a lot of these reactive aspects are anyway in place as far as AI is concerned. The one which I mentioned about proactive are the ones which are in early stages. It is evolving. And I would say it's a matter of time that these will all get converted into real projects as we see and as we see things progress.
Love that. So we're moving from static to flow. We're moving from reactive to proactive. We're I love that phrase you used, Rajesh, of operational compression, and then moving to ECM as real time. That is an exciting concept for me to think about, maybe after this show. But what does ECM in real time look like, and what does it enable? And you've given us some hints there. And what can we achieve with that operational compression? Super interesting. Maybe from here we move to talking about partnerships, because at Doxis we're delighted that Wipro became our kind of flagship strategic GSI partner, and would love to just understand, from the Wipro perspective, in your thinking, why Doxis was a good fit for such a relationship, because we love just to spend a few minutes listening to nice words about how great the team's work has been, and why a credible authority like you would rubber stamp such a thing.
Absolutely. Let me divide this into two parts. First, let me kind of give my view of what a strategic partnership would look like, and then how Doxis would really fit it in well. See, if I look at a strategic partnership, and we being a global SI, there are very strategic partners, and they are partners for innovation, they are partners for scale, they are various different partners that we work with. The most important thing of a strategic alliance begins when both organizations invest beyond transactions. It's not about just joint marketing or sharing leads. It's all about co-innovation, and co-innovation not in just developing a product, but it's co-innovation in how you go to the market. It's a multiplier when you bring a lot from a partner like us, who understands the industry, who understands industry solutions, pair it with a partner who brings deep product expertise, a strategic platform, shared IPs. This, if you bring all these things together, how you can create a long-term strategy and a roadmap alignment is the key for a strategic partnership, in my view. And towards this, what we found with Doxis was, again, twofold, if I had to put this across. We definitely looked at the platform, the amount of AI, the AI-enabled intelligence that was, and the capabilities that were around in the architecture was very robust. Of course, the compliance maturity that has happened over the course, it was that these elements were very much in place for a partner platform, because these are what our clients need. And we were also very excited about the future roadmap that we heard from Doxis leadership in multiple interactions that we had. So that was one piece of it. The second most important piece that I pair up with this is all about mindset. I saw a lot of openness in co-developing the market, understanding each other with empathy, how we could scale, bring talent together, how could we learn and bring that multiplier effect that I talked about, and significantly accelerate the delivery, and how we could grow business together, was the key factors that essentially I would round up saying that why we went ahead with it.
Thank you.
Let's take a little look into the future. Like, if we're sitting here in 2028, like in 2 to 3 years, what does success for this alliance look like?
It's very important that to understand this whole capability is within a wider remit of digital experience within Wipro. And I did explain in the beginning of this what digital experience portfolio is and the ecosystem is. So I see ECM not to sit just as a separate domain. I would see that as it progresses, it embeds inside the entire digital experience ecosystem. Imagine AI native document intelligence integrating into marketing, sales, service workflows. Imagine verticalization of some of these accelerators, which are for, say, banking, insurance, or public sectors. To me, this whole partnership can shift from ECM from just being a support infrastructure to a more strategic growth enabler. That's where I see how this partnership will evolve over the course of time, given the remit of what we can do within the digital experience portfolio.
What, like from your experience and from your perspective, what do you think, how long would it take for the real large enterprises to refocus the ECM conversation from what you've said before, like archiving compliance, to that decision enabling AI-driven agentic workflows? I know we all have that vision, but we also know from reality we're not there yet. So what's your estimate on when that conversation takes place at board level?
I think it is nearing fast, given the evolution and the speed of AI capabilities and the amount of investments that each clients are making in the space. I do see that there would be those initial first buyers in these spaces are already on which now can turn out to projects very soon. I wouldn't give more than a year or two before it starts sitting into the mainstreams of multiple roadmap.
Thank you. Very interesting. Because I know that sometimes is a bit changing the strategy and what people think about ECM. Like it's complete disruption in my opinion. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. And for me, what's clear from our conversation is that enterprise content is no longer just infrastructure. It's so much more. It's like strategic, it's global, and it's increasingly AI driven.
Absolutely. I enjoyed this conversation as well. It's a partnership which has a long way to go. We've started to seeing very good progress. This momentum will continue as we take forward and as the markets are evolving, as I was discussing earlier. So looking forward, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rajesh. Really appreciate you joining us. Very best wishes.
Thank you.
Cheers. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Great stuff. Today, we explored how ECM has evolved, how AI is reshaping the landscape, and why strategic alliances are so important in this time of transformation. I've got some stuff that will stick in my brain from Rajesh around that move from static to flow, that move from reactive to proactive, and that idea of operational compression. So some really interesting thoughts from a guy who's seen a hell of a lot evolve from quite a sort of high level. So really, really cool. Franzi, what was your take?
Yeah, very impressive conversation. And for me, it shows like if you're thinking about scaling enterprise content management, like embedding AI, building strategic partnerships that go far beyond integration. So we're not talking about integration. We're not talking about technology. We're talking about like digital transformation, digital user experience from a broader perspective. And then that is the space to watch and where the disruption and the magic will happen in the future.
Love it. Thank you, Franziska. And to wrap things up, I'm going to sound like a kid on YouTube. Say, please subscribe,
share, and
share.
like.
Please like. You know, these are perspectives that you may find relevant for colleagues or people in companies you work with. That's a really useful perspective to share. So thank you for watching, and keep your content juicy and fresh and strategic.
And intelligent and strategic and ready for the future.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you and goodbye.